Hi. So today's the first lecture for industrial growth, UC 2212, and competition. This will be the first video, and I'll present an introduction to myself, to the course, to the assessments in the course, and some small etiquettes for the course. The second item, where we discuss firms, will be at the lecture on Friday. So let's start with some course information. My name is Michael Richter. You can call me Michael or Professor Richter, whatever you prefer. My email address is michael.richter@rhul.ac.uk. My office is Horton 303. For the time being, we're doing everything virtually, but I hope to be able to return to it at some point. My office hours will be Tuesdays and Wednesdays, since everything from 4 to 5 p.m. Since everything is virtual, the office hours will be online through Teams. My background is, my accent is American. Some people say that. I did my education there, and I moved out to the UK about 4 years ago. So what's the course about? The course is going to be about firms. Why do firms exist? And why may that be surprising or not surprising at all? It's going to be about incentives. How do I get someone else to work for me? What's the structure of the optimal contract? The firm is going to be about organization, how firms should be organized, both in terms of employee management organization and also in terms of financial organization. And the course will be about competition. How do firms compete with each other? Now, why is the course called Industrial Growth and Competition? Well, the first part of the course is industrial growth. And what causes industrial growth? It's industrial organizations, specifically firms. And so we'll want to talk about the rationale of firms and the organization of firms. The second question is competition. Competition is the driving force behind organizational change. Organizational change can lead to different incentive structures within a firm, and this all comes about due to the competition between firms. Without competition, the firm will remain stagnant and stuck in its ways. So in the first two lectures, we'll talk about the theory of the firm, and perhaps it should be a puzzle, perhaps not. Then we'll talk about important concepts relating to the firm and employees. We'll discuss transaction costs, Coase theorem, contracts, moral hazard, adverse selection, and other topics of this type. Then we'll talk about corporate finance in Japan. I have this pegged at 2 lectures also. And we'll talk about debt versus equity finance. Throughout, I'll try to give you different applications in real life examples. And if time permits, I'd like to talk about competition and auctions. So the competition model that I'll typically talk about is called horizontal competition. And if we have time, perhaps we can discuss auctions and markets as well. This outline may be subject to change. This is the first time I've given the course online. So we'll see how it goes as it goes. So the main textbook for the course is Paul Milgram and John Roberts, Economics, Organization, and Management. It should be available in the library. There'll be certain sections that are available online as well. The book will cover a lot more material than we can cover in the course. The book is for an entire year-long course, and this is a semester-long section, so I'll choose the parts and bits that I think are interesting. Moreover, that being said, there'll be some stuff that we cover that's not in the textbook as well. And everything that's not available in the textbook will be available to you online, either in these lectures or through any online supplementary materials. So as we said, any additional materials you may need will be on Moodle. So if you have this book, you have everything that you need. Now, in previous years, I used to run an in-person book market for buying and selling this textbook. To be honest, it was one of really my favorite parts of the course. So I'd write students this year and ask them how much they'd want to buy the book for. And I'd write students last year and ask them how much they want to sell the book for. Then I'd create the market and clear the market based upon the demand and supply among the students. Given the fact that it was kind of tedious and the fact that everything is online, now I'm in the process of trying to develop an app. So I've hired developers, some of whom, but not all of whom, are students at Royal Holloway. And we're not there yet, but since the app is going to be for students, and it's going to be for students at Royal Holloway, I'd be interested in any comments or feedback. I think beta testing would be when the app is fully functioning but not rolled out to the public yet. So I guess I would say we're in alpha testing. So there's a version of the app, there's still many features that are missing, but if you're interested, our initial version can be found here. You can use it on a computer or a phone. It's a bit more natural on a phone. Okay, now this is an important part, your grade. 40% of the grade will be a 2-hour written exam. It'll be similar to old exams, particularly last year's, but I've been teaching this course for 4 years, so any exams over the past 4 years should bear relevance to the current exam. 40% of your grade will be weekly tests. There's going to be 8 weekly tests. There might be 9 on Moodle. 4 of these will be randomly selected, and each of these randomly selected tests will count for 10% of your grade. And then 20% of your mark will be an essay. It'll be a 500 to 600 word essay explaining one of the concepts discussed in the course through some real life lens, and I'll give you some details in a few minutes. So the tests, as I said, there's going to be 8 or 9 tests throughout the term. 4 of these will be randomly selected, and each randomly selected one will count for 10% of your grade. The tests will go online on Tuesday night, and they'll remain open all the way till Sunday evening. The first test goes online on the 19th of January, so after the first lecture. Each test will cover the material of the associated lecture, the videos, and the seminars. The seminars take place this year on Wednesdays, so even though the quiz goes online on Tuesday, I'd probably wait until Wednesday in case you want to see the seminar first. And please revise the problem set before looking at the online tests. Now, a test usually contains about 10 questions. Some are a little bit longer. The difficulty may vary from question to question, test to test, and you generally have an hour to complete the test, and the test typically requires much less than an hour. Questions usually fall into one of the following 3 categories. There's control questions about reading and understanding the assigned material. There's repetition questions about can you reproduce the covered material? And there's knowledge transfer questions. Can you transfer what we learned into a different context? It's your responsibility to make sure you do the tests. The essay is about 500 to 600 words, which means about 1 page. And for the essay, I'd like you to find an example of one of the concepts we discussed, and I'll say which concepts later in the lecture. And I'd like the example to be something from everyday life. So it can be something from your own life. Movie examples, stories also work pretty well. Something from the newspaper. And I'd like you to combine an original story with a structured analysis of the transaction. Here, it's a mistake. It says 5%. Actually, the essay will count 20% of your grade. So this was from previous years. Now, examples for ideas of economics in real life can be found in this Economics is Everywhere book by Dan Hammermesh. It's available in the library. Dan Hammermesh used to be a faculty member here, and before that at University of Texas. And I actually have his office, so it's sad, of course, that he retired, but I hope that he enjoys his retirement. The essay will be due at the end of the semester, so last year was in December, and this year it should be at the end of the semester, which should be late March, early April. The essay is marked on 4 different categories, so topic, the grammar, the overall structure of the essay, and the quality of the analysis of the essay. I shouldn't have to say this, but there's some plagiarism checking software, so plagiarism will be punished, and I'll give you more details about the structure of the essay and the topics of the essay when we discuss the concepts later on in the course. Seminars are going to be on Wednesdays, so there's 3 different seminar sessions. In those seminars, problem sets will be covered, which is very important for exam preparation. It's also important for the tests, the online tests. And it's important, I think, that you work on the problem sets before you go to the seminar. Because without working on the problem sets, you don't know what is straightforward and what is difficult. And you can't genuinely work on the problem sets after you've seen the seminar because you know the answers. So it's important to do the work yourself and then to watch the problem sets to understand what's going on. The problem sets will be fairly mathematical in focus. I think that this is one of the great innovations of economics in the 1900s was the introduction of math. Once math was introduced, we could formalize mathematical models, which would let us express concepts formally in a way that everybody understands, and lets you make formal, clear predictions. The models aren't perfect, but hopefully the analysis is. So given the parameters of the model, we can state clearly what is and is not true for the model. The problem sets will be mathematical and they may contain more math than the exam, but that's because there's lots of things that make sense on exams, like asking about you to explain a concept that don't make sense in a problem set. The solutions of problem sets will be presented in the seminars, but typically the solutions to the problem sets will not be presented online until the course is finished, at which point they will be made available so you can use them to study for the exams. Okay, I'd like to say a small something on course etiquette. Typically when I'm in person, I prefer if you don't use any electronic devices, except for note-taking purposes. Since this course is going to be online instead, the rules have to adapt and be a bit different. Regarding electronic equipment, I prefer that besides the devices that you're using for the course itself, that all other electronic devices should be turned off during the lecture. And, it's really for your benefit. So lectures are live, and if you're distracted, you may miss something very important. Sometimes I like to look at my phone when I'm watching a movie, but that's because I don't need to understand exactly what's going on in the movie. For email, it's best practice for you to check your college email often. I try to be very diligent about checking my email, so I'll typically respond within 24 hours unless it's the weekend. If you send an email to someone, such as myself or the TA leader, Alex, it'd be great if you have a meaningful subject and you contain your name, just so that it's clear what the email is about and so that he or I can respond properly. That being said, the TA, Alex Vickery, I've worked with him before, and he's a fantastic TA, so this year you're very lucky to have him as a TA, and he's graduating this year, so this will be the last year that he's a TA. For, how do you take notes? I think the most important thing to take notes of when you're taking notes is of the main points of what's discussed in the course. What I would suggest you don't do is write down everything that I happen to say, but I think it's a good idea to also take notes of things that interest you, surprise you, that perhaps irritate you, that you don't understand, or that you may disagree with. And, these notes will be useful to organize your thoughts when you're revising for the exams and also for when you're doing the tests. There's been some studies that people understand more clearly and benefit by taking handwritten notes over electronic notes, but of course the choice is yours. So that's the end of the introduction. The next video is going to discuss incentives, specifically regarding contracts. And then in the lecture on Friday, we'll get into some of the material regarding the structure and organization of firms. So thanks very much. It's nice to meet you, and I'll see you all on Friday.